Finland and Sweden are joining NATO.
Russia is threatening to increase its military presence in the Baltic Sea if Sweden and Finland join NATO.
You and I, my friend, may be living on the brink of World War III, and the scary thing is, we may also be living on the brink of all-out nuclear war. Yes, your world could be literally obliterated by this one decision, so this video is very, very important for you. That's why you will watch this video to the end and learn things you never knew before. Let's begin. You've probably been hearing a lot about NATO and Russia in the news, and in this video we will unpack this very complex yet deadly conflict between NATO and Russia. NATO and Russia have been locked in a Cold War for 73 years, ever since NATO was created in 1949. You see, many people believe that the Cold War ended in 1991, with the collapse of the Soviet Union. In reality though, the tense relations between Russia and NATO have continued and have significantly intensified in recent years. With these high tensions, the frightening possibility of nuclear war has reappeared on the scene. And with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the possibility of nuclear annihilation and World War III has seriously increased. In today's video, you will find out what NATO is, why Finland and Sweden are joining, and why this could cause World War III. NATO was created in 1949 with the goal of stopping Soviet aggression and preventing any other nationalistic militarism in the rest of Europe. As Lord Lionel Hastings, the first Secretary General of NATO, said, NATO was created to keep the Soviet Union out, the Americans in, and the Germans down. This statement was completely true, as it became very apparent to Western powers that the Soviet Union had no interest in maintaining world peace whatsoever. Also, after World War II, the Soviet Union had made it a priority to spread communism all across Eastern Europe, installing communist leadership and turning most nations in Eastern Europe into proxy states. In fact, Poland, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Albania, Czechoslovakia, and East Germany fell directly under the realm of Soviet influence. These nations collectively formed what was known as the Eastern Bloc, a group of countries allied with the USSR. Throughout the Cold War, NATO stood as a strong barrier against the USSR and likely prevented the Cold War from spiraling out of control into World War III. However, as the Soviet Union neared collapse and the Cold War began to thaw, assurances were given to the Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev that NATO would not expand further east, and this was revealed by a memoranda of private conversations. Despite this, however, the final text of the treaty on the final settlement with respect to Germany, signed later that year, contained no mention of eastward expansion whatsoever, and time would quickly reveal that NATO would indeed continue expanding eastward, with Romania, Hungary, Bulgaria, Albania, Germany, Poland, Czechia, and Slovakia, and practically the entirety of Eastern Europe joining NATO in the future. Soon NATO went from looking like this in 1991 to this in 2021. In a mere 30 years, NATO went from being pretty far from Russia's border to being literally on Russia's border. And this caused Russia no small amount of grief, because NATO is not merely a symbolic organization. It is literally a military alliance. And if any nation finds themselves at war with one nation in NATO, they will quickly find themselves at war with the entirety of NATO, a total of 30 countries. How is this possible? Article 5 of the NATO Treaty mandates a commitment from all members of NATO that if one member of NATO is attacked, each member of NATO will consider it an attack against their own country. Upon such an attack, each member state is to assist by taking such action as the member state deems necessary, including the use of armed force to restore and maintain security of the North Atlantic area. That means that if Russia found themselves in any armed conflict with Estonia, for example, they would likely quickly find themselves at war with over 30 countries and would not stand a chance and be swiftly defeated and humiliated. Even President Putin has admitted that there is no comparison between NATO and Russia in the event of a war. Now, with all this data, it may seem like Russia is the victim here and NATO is the aggressor. However, many times it is completely the other way around. You see, ever since the collapse of the USSR, Russia has made it a point to harass, threaten, and even invade former Soviet territories, as we have seen in Ukraine. This consistent Russian aggression has caused many smaller nations that used to be part of the Soviet Union to fear for their safety and therefore join NATO. I mean, think about it. If you're Latvia, you really stand no chance of winning a war with Russia. So what makes sense? Find the big guys and go hide behind them for protection, which is exactly what many former Soviet states and proxies have done. Therefore, NATO has expanded significantly, but this was seriously prompted by the consistent Russian aggression toward other former Soviet territories. As we discussed in the last video, Putin's main goal is to reunite the Soviet Union by force if necessary. Yes, by force. Hence, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Therefore, the Cold War has not ended. It merely paused, and now it has continued. In fact, Ukraine is merely a battleground between NATO and Russia, and the two powers are duking it out in a proxy war to decide the future fate of Europe, especially Eastern Europe. And due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Finland and Sweden, two nations which have consistently been neutral in world conflicts, are now currently in the process of joining NATO. This brings NATO even closer to Russia's border, and it merely fans the flames of World War III and could be moving us closer to all-out nuclear war. In today's world, you cannot afford to be out of touch with what's going on in your own world. If you want to learn more about current events and urgent news without the bias of modern media, be sure to subscribe to our channel and share this video with a friend. God bless, and I'll see you next time.